Hi students, Professor Matt here. Today's lecture is going to be on reader response analysis. A brief overview of reader response analysis. The theory comes as a reaction against the new critic's dismissal of the reader in the process of interpretation. So the new criticism was a type of formalist criticism that was very focused on the text in the process of interpretation, and so reader response theorists were responding to their ignoring of the reader in this process. So, as the name denotes, the primary focus of reader response criticism is on the reader. Now, this is important to note that an initial reaction, sort of a knee-jerk response to a text, does not constitute analysis. So this is a more rigorous theory than simply anything goes, a read and respond however you want. So we're going to talk a bit about some of the components of reader response criticism. And it's also important to note that this is a theory that can work in conjunction with other theories, like all of the theories really. You can combine them with other theories in a way to create a new sort of synergy. One critic said that whatever meaning an author may intend to communicate through the text, and whatever meanings the text may generate in seemingly clear fashion through its language or imagery, must be decoded by readers, who may respond in varying ways. And I thought this quote was really apropos of reader response theory because it clearly demonstrates the importance of the reader in the process. So we have the author who writes the text, and then we have the reader who must then come along and decode the text. What reader response brings to the table is a way of talking about and thinking about how important the readers are in the process of interpretation. So reading then is a communication process. As one brand of reader response criticism calls it, as a transaction between the text and the reader. Now, of course, misreadings will occur, but these are not an end to themselves. They're not defensible by saying, well, that's my response, that's how I feel about the text, therefore it's valid. That's not exactly what reader response criticism does. And of course, boredom is also not an appropriate response to the text. It's sort of a dead end to itself. But what reader response really gets at, the heart of it, is really an interpretation of the interpretation process itself. So in this sense, it's a very meta-theoretical or metacognitive. Metacognition is thinking about the act of your own thinking. So it's a meta-theoretical, it's a process of interpretation and analyzing how you interpret a text. So the first key principle of reader response criticism is that the meaning of a text is not wholly intrinsic to the text itself. And again, we can think about this or contextualize it in the framework of reader response versus formalist or a new critical tradition that looks primarily at the text as the locus of meaning. And so reader response is again going to focus on the reader. New critics were concerned with the ideal reader. Of course, the new critical ideal reader is someone who understands things like symbol and synecdoche and metaphor and simile, etc., whereas our actual readers might not be as well versed with all of these literary devices. And so they're going to look at how an actual reader decodes and interprets a text. Second key principle, the reading experience may be highly subjective, but careful investigation of the roots of differing responses and interpretations can be an important critical exercise. So again, the focus is on the communication process in reader response criticism. And of course, readers don't come to the text with the tabula rasa. So they don't come as sort of a blank slate and let the text kind of imprint itself upon them, but they come armed with all their political, religious, and social beliefs. And so these will come into play as a reader makes interpretive choices through the text. And of course, misreadings are going to occur. Someone might say, well, Shakespeare's Lady Macbeth reminds me of my great aunt, but of course, critics aren't going to concur with that conclusion from the text that the meaning behind Shakespeare's Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's character, in fact, relates to your great aunt. So misreadings occur, but they're not defensible in any sort of way. The third key principle, as readers proceed through a text, they make choices and engage in an interpretive process that may be traced and analyzed. So it's important to know the reader response criticism is not passive reading, but focuses on very active reading. Again, it's meta-theoretical. It focuses on the process of interpretation itself. And readers always move backwards and forwards through time as they read a text. They're going to be synthesizing new information with the old information, formulating new ideas and hypotheses about what might happen in the text, and of course reshaping them as he or she proceeds throughout the text to its conclusion. The fourth key principle is the success of reader response analysis depends on the sophistication of the critic's metatheoretical approach to the reading process and the quality of evidence presented to support any conclusion. And this key principle kind of borrows a page out of formalist criticism that says that even though we're focusing on the reader, we still need to pay careful attention to the text itself, and we need to value a close reading of that text. So that gets at the quality as well as we could say the quantity of evidence being shown. Yes, a reader might respond or interpret the text as having a certain meaning, but we have to go back to the text itself and demonstrate that we have sufficient evidence to prove and support and validate that interpretation of the text. So putting reader response theory into practice. You can start by beginning to analyze your own, or you can analyze others' process of reading. Questions that you might ask yourself: why do you interpret the text as you do? What implicit values do you hold that inform the reading of your text? Are there religious, political, social values that come into play that you begin to see in the text that might be a result of your preconceived values and notions that you, in fact, are bringing to bear on the text? What specific moments of the text impress you the most, or as being the most pertinent to its meaning, and why? So go back to the passages that really stick out to you in a text and think about, why does this passage stick out? Why does this word seem to be important? Why is this motif developing that I notice throughout the text? And you can also look at how other readers interpret the same text differently. And that gets into the idea of communities of readers and looking at how a community of readers might support and defend a certain interpretation of the text. So this is Professor Matt signing off. Until next time, we'll see you later.